Well, build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance that's buried in his eye. Well, he gave me bars, but I can see between to a dusty yard and a long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I drown my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone. I'm sober.
Hello everybody, welcome to Quick Bang. I'm Matty. We're talking about Hibs losing up at Pittodrie. Pretty abject performance. You and I know you might have to kind of make a quick sharp exit, so I'll come to you first. What was your take on the game, mate?
I felt like it was probably worse than last week, and it started in a similar vein. I thought there wasn't really much in the game until the goal, albeit I would say Aberdeen probably edged it similarly to how Dundee United edged it prior to their goal. But then the second half was so much worse than last week because like Aberdeen are off form and Dundee United actually look like a decent team this year, whereas that Aberdeen team played like a team that hadn't won in 10, and we just managed to be a lot worse than that. And there's players that just, I know we've got injuries and stuff, but there's we don't have a player in form right now. Like not one player's really playing well, and that in itself is worrying for me. That's it. I don't know if it's Jack Ross, I don't know if it's the players, I don't know if it's injuries. You know, it's probably a perfect storm of everything, but we're on a real negative trend right now. Personally, I don't think we've put together a good performance since before the first international break. Obviously, we've only had one win and 6 in the league now since then, and that was St Johnstone at home. The penalty that was a bit iffy. Like, yeah. Look, at the time, like you win, you move on from it. But like the last 2 games are really worrying, and there just seems to be no style, no idea on the park in terms of like the midfield aren't really getting into the strikers quickly. When it does get to the strikers, I know they're in him with it. It's worrying. I'm worried. I'm really worried about Wednesday. I think we could get embarrassed on Wednesday night if we play like that.
It was embarrassing today, to be fair.
No,
the no style, no idea. We're getting into playing banner territory.
No style, no ball.
Leon, what about you? What was your take on the game?
It was just similar to what you were saying. It was really bad. I said earlier, I've said to you as well about one of the chats, and that was when we lose, there's games that we lose that you could just get a sense of it 20 minutes in that you're like, we're not going to get nothing out of this today. You're waiting on a spark or sort of playing a lift that, you're waiting on something to change, and it never changed. And I mean, I was listening, obviously, we were talking a lot last week about Dave Cormack, or McCormack, what his name is, talking about the stats and that with Aberdeen, and talking about how much possession they were holding and games, but just not able to win and all this nonsense. And you watched them today and they were pish. The Aberdeen are pish, right? And we had the ball more than them. So they were losing games that they had more possession, and then that we had more possession than them, couldn't get a shot on target, and we were absolutely fucking terrible. And I think, like you were saying, I can't think of anybody that I'd take out that Hibs side now and put them in the side 6 weeks ago, or whenever it was, but when we came before the international break and stuff, and we were doing not too bad. It's just, there's so many things going wrong now. I made the stupid statement of saying Hibs didn't lose 3 games that often, and
it's your
obviously
fault.
Came back to bite you again. It's all I'm taking full responsibility for it, and it's just, I mean, that's where we were with Jack Ross. He had these critics, and he's always had this group that I've always just never taken to him, which is fair enough. You'll get that, but I feel like it's starting to now turn that if he doesn't start turning this around, the numbers are got to start growing, because that noise just gets louder and louder. I think the game on Wednesday is massive now against Celtic, who are on the rise, playing really well. But that is today. If we play like today, we'll get a doing on Wednesday night. Absolutely no danger if we turn up like we did today. Are we getting in?
David, forgive me, something. Dave, hi, Dave. Hi, how you doing? Your dinner's ready. Big game on Wednesday then against Celtic. Do you see Jack Ross turning it around in time for that?
It might actually help us playing against somebody like Celtic, to be honest, where we're under a bit more of a proper pressure, and we can go back to kind of the counter attacking that did us so well very early in the season. Today was very odd. It was quite difficult to watch, to be honest. I didn't really, from the minute the team sheet went up, I couldn't figure out how we were going to play. And I know we had a wee chat on the WhatsApp group about that, and it looked like it was initially a 4-3-3. Then it looked like it was like a 3-4-3. But the three up top were never a three up top because Nisbet was so deep, not even just coming deep. He stayed deep for a lot of the game. He was playing like a number 10. And there's a guy on Twitter, 90 plus tours on his call, he does the analysis on this. He says something like halfway through the first half. He's like, you can see all the gaps on the right hand side, and you could see it watching the game. You're playing Lewis as a wing back, and he's never a wing back in a million years. Even when in his younger days, he was never really a wing back. He's a consistently steady left back, right? And he'll do a good job as we keep a straight back forward and all the rest of it. He'll do a job. But every time he's going forward, they're just playing balls over the top and trying to get away from it. And that's where they got the goal from. Now, 100%, Hanlon should have been marking the guy in the middle. And for some reason, our centre-halves have stopped marking players when balls come over. We appear to have created this way that we don't mark players, we mark areas. That's all good and fine if you're doing it for corners and all the rest of it, and you've got a setup that you do for that. But no one there attacking at you. You've got to see where the runners are coming from and track those runners. Stevenson gets beat to the ball, the boy gets past him, it's an easy ball to him, right to his foot. And the centre-halves are just looking. Hanlon makes half a run at him, doesn't close him down quickly enough, and he has an easy chance. Now, they actually created very few chances in the game because they are pish. Mm-hmm. And that's the most disappointing thing about that game today. They're rubbish. But as the guys were saying, our form took a massive, massive nosedive. And does it get down to the fact that our squad is so threadbare, right, that if we lose 2 or 3 players, we're basically gubbed with a bottom 16. And that's, to me, that's kind of what it looks like just now, which is really worrying. And we've always known we've had a thin squad. We've known that since the start of the season. Right, the players that are in there to provide cover, we know aren't really first 11 players. Right, but the lack of McGuinness in there is huge for us, like massive. Right, he's the only midfielder for me that drives us forward in midfield. Right, Barrels does his job. Again, I thought he did all right today. I thought he was winning the ball back, but when he looks to play a pass, there's nobody. There's nobody for him to play it. And even in that setup where you have the 3 forwards and Nisbet going wide, the ball out should have been the wide player. But I never saw nothing from Boyle, especially in the first half, and Gullen on the other side. At what time did we try and play the ball out to them in those positions? Never happened. So, I don't know, it's worrying that you have such a nosedive from where we were. Early on in the season, I thought we were playing some really great stuff. And is it all just down to the fact that we're missing 3 of our starters? Is it simple as that? Because if it is, then we need to do something else.
Aye. Leon, you your hand up. You want to come in?
Aye, sorry, it was just so I felt the day as well, the way the game went. Obviously, Aberdeen struggled a few times with their having issues with players going off. Obviously, injuries and defence, and the game constantly was getting stopped and started. And as soon as Aberdeen got that goal, I'm not blaming that obviously because we could have still been playing and it would have stayed the same. But I was like, it suited Aberdeen. It suited for what they were up against. It was for suiting for they were like Hibs weren't coming at them obviously, and I felt like obviously I think with the keeper as well, Ken he was doing. The game was slowed down again. They stopped and started. They were shuffling a lot at the back, having to change players' positions and and I felt like the game itself was just so fucking bad. And it was just that one moment that Aberdeen had that we never made anything, that was a massive difference. The goal itself was driving me fucking nuts. Because you see, Hanlon was running back, he turned and looked at Ramirez and continued his run. As soon as Hanlon stopped looking at Ramirez slowed his run down. Because he knew he was like, he's checked me 5 years before where I should have checked me. And you watch it again, honestly, watch Hanlon what he does. And then obviously Stevenson, I didn't mind the thing about putting your names behind your back. I didn't mind it when they're trying to, but I didn't even think he was in the box when he done that. So it was like, he's standing with his behind his back, trying to stop the cross. And I'm like, I get that, but take the chance, make yourself big, Ken. Try and one thing we do struggle with, everybody we're going about crosses all the time, is stopping crosses into the box. And how can we know, how can that not get changed? How can that be sorted? I mean, we watched this. I watched the thing with Jack Ross coaching thing, and it was really, really interesting. It was so good when they done the video thing, doing like the day with him and all that. And
Aye.
I can't remember who it was that done it. I didn't think it was Hibs. It was somebody else, like some other. Anyway,
Coach's voice.
aye, and it was really, really interesting. It was brilliant, and again, it put a lot of folk to shame. Talk about tactics on Twitter and all this, again, all the statisticians and all these folk, and then when you actually watch what they work on and that, and you're like, really exciting, like how to spread the play out, make spaces, but you can't get the way on said, no. I'm like, go and just spend a day stopping crosses going into the box. Just spend a day with the full backs blocking crosses. You stop that, Hibs are picking up fucking 20 points a season. You know what I mean? It's mental. And to even look at it now, I do like looking at Hibs were posting unbeaten, top of the league or not top of the league, and kind of us push at the start of the season. And as you do, it's all about promoting and positivity and everything. But I checked the league, and we're 5 points off the top, and we're going through a terrible run, and we're struggling, and we're on our arse, and we're on our arse now. But I'm like, we're not that far away. Like, if this is your stutter, and we got a chance to now pick up a few results, we can be right back in the mix again. Obviously, Rangers are going to play them on, but I mean, like, again, Hearts technically can are the top with the extra games, but it's no lost cause. The league's no lost cause now. I mean, I know the league title, by the way, just in the league in general. The league's no lost cause. It's just we need to turn something around.
Aye. You had your hand up there as well.
I was just also with the boys talking about the goal that we conceded. It's not a great goal to concede, and obviously it's definitely. I mean, we've seen cross ball after cross ball, but away from home, even at home, you're going to give up probably one chance a game. And if we're winning away in the league, I think you need to score 2 goals. You know what I mean? I don't really expect us to keep clean sheets away from home. It's generally just how I approach games. And the biggest worry for me is the drop-off in the midfield and the forwards. Like, it's just, like I said earlier, we're just creating absolutely nothing. And I just, like I said, we're missing a lot of players and stuff. And I think that is a factor. Like, I don't think our squad is that thin if everyone's fit. Like, today you're also missing Porteous. That's a definite starter. Deutsch, that's probably a definite starter. McGuinness, it's a definite starter. If you look at Hearts and say take out Boyce, Benigni, and Suter, like, they're going to struggle.
Aye.
Nielsen was on the radio today saying how he's got 20 players to choose from, and that's what he wants. I would say if we have everyone fit, we probably have 20, if not more.
Yep.
And so I know it's easy to say, oh, the squad's pish, the squad's thin. Like, injury, and you have a squad to deal with injuries. That team should have been good enough to beat Aberdeen. People say Jack Ross hasn't got a clue, and I do think he's running out of ideas. I do think like he's changing. That's 2 or 3 weeks in the spin. He's made big changes, changed the system.
That tells you a lot.
Working, and I think the players are letting him down massively. Like it's been discussed at length about Nisbet's work rate and stuff. Again, I thought Nisbet was all right for the first half hour, but then after the goal, he dropped out the game. There was a point just after the goal, I think, where the ball comes into him about just inside the Aberdeen half, and he tries to lay it off, and he just pings it 20 yards back. Like, it goes in the air 20 yards back and lands at the feet of Aberdeen, maybe even being a striker. Like, what are you doing? And I just think the players are letting him down massively now. In the past, I've maybe not been the biggest fan of Jack Ross, and I'm definitely trying to be a little bit more patient than I had been probably last year. But I just think the players are massively letting people down now. Like, Martin Boyle has got a lot of goals this season, but see if you take penalties out of his game, which still needs scored, I don't know if he's actually been that good. Like, over the full season. And I know it's hard, and you probably judge him at a higher level than other players because you expect more of him. But he's nowhere near the levels that he's capable of now. Joe Newell, Jake Doyle-Hayes, probably the whole team since before that first international break, it's just been a steady, gradual decline as far as I'm aware. And I think this time next Saturday, we'll have a real idea of where the season's going, because I think the next 2 games are massive. And I think if Jack Ross doesn't get 4, maybe even 6, then people are going to be right on his back.
Dave, we talk about the changes that were made. So we saw McGregor, Stevenson, and Gullen coming into the side. These are players that Jack Ross clearly hasn't fancied this season. What does it say about where we're at the moment, that's who he's turning to try and dig him out a hole?
So it's interesting that you mention that, because that what I was taken aback by, and I know different people have said it before him, that it was great that that Jack had said that he was wrong to not play Gullen the other day there, right, against United, and he had apologised to him and all the rest of it. First of all, he shouldn't be saying that in the press. That's nonsense. That's something that happens in the team and all the rest of it, right? They do that in the changing room. All that kind of stuff shouldn't be talked about to the public, because it lends to that idea that he's been somehow led by public reaction, right? And Gullen, right, is a handy player at a certain level, right? He's, and I'll get shut down for this, right? But he is nowhere near the level of a top Scottish Premiership team, right? He will go in the Championship, score loads, all the rest of it, handy player, all that kind of stuff, right? McGregor, again, handy player to have in the squad, but he's past it, right? And I know when people said that before, right, people went mental saying they were having a go at him because he got sent off in the European game, right? He doesn't have the legs, and he plays football in a certain way that we don't play football that way anymore, right? And you saw it again today. Every time we got the ball, we just lumped it. Like, when we were playing good football earlier on in the season, and maybe it's down to the change in tactics again, and again what Ewan said there about the players will be letting us down. Every time we seem to change the formation a little bit, it goes to shit. Like, there's nothing difficult about what they're trying to do when they change formation. If you go to a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3, the players should know that inside out and should know how to play it. But as soon as we go from a 4-2-3-1 to anything else, a lot of the players look lost in that formation. Newell, for me, did very little today, like almost nothing, right? And I know there was some other chat on the forum about, when they play the 4-2-3-1, they're too close together. Well, they're not. They weren't earlier on in the season. Mm. So what's changed that suddenly they're all really compact and all the rest of it? Stevenson, as I said earlier, great player to have there on the bench for a back four, never a wing back. I don't understand why you never brought Doigon when we're trying to kind of make more out of that side. So it's worrying that the players aren't reacting in a way when we do change formation. And if we are that straightforward that we can only play well in a 4-2-3-1, then we've got a real problem, because it's really easy to set your team up to play against that. And every other coach is saying, oh, it's Hibs, it's 4-2-3-1, we know how to beat them. So I would never have dropped Woods after one game, right? I didn't understand that at all. And again, and this is what I'm getting back to about the chat about Gullen. I'm a little bit concerned that our manager is basing his team selection on what Twitter and the public are saying and what they're saying. Because at the end of the day, none of us here are coaches. None of us here watch these players on the training ground every day, right? And if you're telling me that he's playing Gullen because he scored 3 against Huddersfield 18-year-olds, right, and thinking that we're going to score a bucket load against Aberdeen, then we're completely wrong. At no point did any of our forward plays run at that defence. And their defence was threadbare for the last 50 minutes. Threadbare. They'd Scott bloody Brown playing centre half, and nobody ran at them. Go and explain to me how we kind of get Boyle in the middle, run at them at pace. Yet they did it to us. It's just like, this is a lot of it's really basic, and that's what's frustrating about it. That you can go from a team that was playing some really handy football, right, to that day, which was, it's hard not to be disappointed. I'm normally a positive guy, but we need to change something.
Ewan, last week, Jack Ross after the game said that the players were lazy and selfish, were two of the words that he used to describe it. Normally, you'd expect a reaction from the players after that. What does it say about where the team are at now that there was no reaction today?
Not a reaction. It took us, we went for 78 minutes without a shot on target to 90 minutes without a shot on target. Nah, well, no, that's it. You're spot on, Matt. There was absolutely no reaction. I thought we were going to come out and really have a go today. I was nervous before the game. Just to be honest, I'd not really thought about it. And I sat down half hour before whatever started the pay-per-view and that, and I was like, the game went exactly how I was worried it would, and there was no reaction. Like Jack Ross spoke about during the week. I can't remember what player done the interview, but all the chat you seen was about reacting, and like you said, we've done that pretty well, probably under Jack Ross. You sort of had Christmas time last year where was it 3 on the spin at Christmas time last year?
I think so.
With a controversial defeat at Ibrox, and then January probably wasn't great last year, but we got out of the slump, and there was nothing today, and that's the most worrying thing for me. And just like what Dave said, like Aberdeen's keeper went down injured. We never really put a shot in at him to put him under pressure. Crosses that were easy for him to collect. their centre halves were struggling. Like, and earlier in the season, I think it was Livy. They had to change their centre half, and we targeted them straight away and got a goal at the back of it. See, we're making it so easy for teams now. Like you say, it's Scott Brown, who's about 55-year-old at centre half. Just put fucking Martin Boyle on him and ping balls behind him and let him run.
Yep.
Like, look, it might not work, but at least make them think. Do something a little bit different. But I think teams have sussed us out now. It's like, do you know what? Hibs like to play with width. Let them have the width because they've got fuck all in the box that's going to challenge us in there. And
we brought Scott Allen on. We brought Scott Allen on, right? And the only ball he did of any decent was when he was out on the left-hand side. For fuck's sake, get Boyle up top, put Scott Allen in there, taking the ball and playing those passes between those centre halves, give him something to run onto. And it just never happened.
Something that just totally, I mentioned it in the chat during the game. Our delivery in general, but our delivery for set pieces,
horrendous.
God, like the sort of team that we are, I would guess that we get more corners and free kicks than on average the rest of the league, just in terms of we tend to be on the front foot and stuff like that. It annoys the living shit out of me that we don't even have a consistent set piece taker since McGuinness has left. Last week against Dundee United, in the second half, Jamie Murphy, Martin Boyle, Joe Newell, and someone else, I can't remember it was, took corners in a row. 4 different corner takers in a row. It's like, have we actually got an idea of what we're trying to do here? Everyone laughed about the train at the start of the season, but we got a goal out of that. Ryan Porte just scored. Like, it's small things. It's like, what are we doing here? And I mean,
the Martin Boyle free kick was.
The game was perfectly summed up in the last act before half time. Boyle just literally floating it in, and Joe Lewis just went, "Cheers, lad." See,
playing the game back for an injury or something, the way he done it, it was just like, have that ball back. Because it was like 5 years, 10 years beyond everybody else, and the height that only Joe Lewis would take you there. It was honestly, that really fucking tucked me over.
Aye, pretty grim, eh? Right, we'll wrap up by just trying to summarise your thoughts on Jack Ross. Where are you at with him? Dave, we'll start with you. Jack Ross, in or out?
I wouldn't change it at all. I think we need to stop changing managers, right? I think he needs a season. He needs another season and another. So you get January out of the way, right, and then he needs next season where he's allowed to bring in more players, right, so we can get rid of all this pish that was somehow the recruitment department's fault that we didn't have the players, right? I think we were limited on who we could go for and all the rest of it, and there were some players we tried to get but didn't get. I know I used the word threadbare and all the rest of it, right? But I mean in the fact that do we have people really pushing to get into that 11? And I don't think we have that. So the 3 players that miss, and I'll go back to what you said, right? Any other team in the league misses 3 of their main starters, they're going to struggle, right? And we have to remember that right now. We are missing Doidge, we're missing McGuinness, we're missing Porto, right? And for me, Doidge and McGuinness are huge there, right? Porto, it makes a difference as well. I totally get that. But I think once we get those 3 in, but it's looking like, a month for Doidge and maybe even 2 months for McGuinness. So you're looking at Christmas time before you're back to your perfect
start. Looking at McGuinness coming back for the weekend. I thought that was. I maybe imagined that. I thought I saw that in the paper.
After the next thing, I think it's the next one or something.
Is it?
I think he had hoped that he was going to be back, but he said we don't even know the full extent of it. We're still assessing it, and he said that the likelihood is we hope that he'll be available after the next international break, which is after the first game after the breaks, the League Cup semi-final.
That's grim, isn't it? Leon, what about you? Where are you with Jack Ross?
He's I'm the same with Dave. Like, I mean, we've changed managers at really large times this seasons before, and essentially just chucked the season away and let's start everybody use it the clean slate. We'll start again game next season, Joe. But we've got to everything changing with the structure. Said a lot after the transfer window. Matthew and that leaving and the decisions that have been made there. I think that tells you what's sort of been going on behind the scenes. That obviously Ron has got to support them, and they need to support them because, like we were saying, there's no pushing in that team. There's no the performance have just been so fucking poor. And get me wrong, if they didn't change, it's the manager's fault. He's the man that's meant to get the players up. He's the man that's meant to get the performance of the players. I'm no way would I want to lose Jack Ross. No way. But it's got to get to a stage that if they didn't turn it over in the next Can you talk in the next 2 games? You've got to have to pick something out of there, and then you've got three games after that. They've got to get some kind of momentum, or even just performances now, because the performances are terrible. But you can't go changing managers. It's a silly business today. I can't remember us changing a manager and it going well, really.
Probably bringing Jack Ross in.
Apart from that, totally.
Ewan, last word to you then.
Just about still onside. I'm still Jack Ross in if it came to a vote, but the next 7 days are big. Like I genuinely think that if we get beat by Celtic and then don't beat Ross County, then it's going to be toxic. I don't know who we've got after Ross County, but he'll be behind the 8 ball, and I don't think he'll be in a position to bring it back with a lot of the fan base, and that talks. I think a lot of fans have already accepted it. So right now, Jack Ross in, but that could change. Now, I blame the players more than him.
Dave had said giving the last word to you, but you've channeled your inner Raymond here, and you got your hand up.
I can't stop myself because I just said you talked about Celtic earlier on and how we play against them. For me, I would go back to the 3-5-2 that we used to play last season, just because I don't think we're getting enough of Boyle just sitting out wide. I would play him up next to Nisbet. I think it gets a bit more from Nisbet as well, and you have to have a go at Celtic. So they're all about scoring, but they can't defend. Their defence is still shit. So if you don't have a go at them, you're never going to get any result. We cannot sit back and play like a 4-2-3 on the nose to try and absorb it and then try to get the break. Just go at them 3-5-2 and try and get those balls through the middle, because their centre halves, just like Aberdeen's, are really, really poor. So balls through the middle, breaking the lines, and then get Boyle scoring goals in the middle of the park rather than being out wide, occasionally touching the ball.
And very quickly then, seeing as you did get the last word to Dave, not so much Jack Ross, predictions for that game. Will we have a shot on target? Ewan?
Yes.
Dave?
74th minute.
Leon?
2-1 Hibs.
2-1 Hibs, right. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll kind of pick the bones out of the game again on Monday with Longbangers. So hope to hear for you then. No, hope you tune in for that. Fuck it, I reckon. It's been a pish day. Right, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
County line I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink what I know.